that if God had given us a gift, it should be apparent. It should be easily accessible. When I asked Rich Dad to clarify this, he said, "Great doctors spend years in school and then practice for years developing their gift. Great golfers have practiced for years developing their gift. While there are the exceptions, such as child prodigies, most people have to dedicate their life to finding and developing their gift. Unfortunately, the world is filled with gifted people who never develop their gift. Finding one's gift can be hard work, and then developing one's gift can be even harder work. And that is why so many people appear to be below average." "So that is why most professional athletes practice harder than amateurs?" I asked. "They dedicate their life to developing their strength and skills in order to develop their gift." Rich Dad nodded. Once again, I had heard more than I could handle. The discussion was over, but I remembered the lesson. Good is the enemy of great. There are two books I recommend to friends who are dedicated to becoming the best they can be in life. I strongly recommend both books for anyone dedicated to becoming a great entrepreneur. The first one is Good to Great by Jim Collins. We have read and held study groups on this book 5 times. Each time our group studied the book in depth, it seemed like we were reading a different book. The opening line of Good to Great says it all. Collins begins by stating, "Good is the enemy of great." Keeping with the subject of finding one's gift, we all know the world is filled with good business people, good athletes, good parents, good workers, and good governments. But the world has a shortage of great business people, great athletes, great parents, great workers, great governments, and so on. Why? Because for many of us, good is good enough. If my rich dad were here today, he would say, bringing out your gift is about bringing out your greatness, not just what you are good enough at. Good to Great is filled with lessons essential for big and small businesses. In our study groups, each person seemed to find a lesson that was written just for him or her. For me, the lesson that hit me the hardest was the lesson that greatness is a choice. It is not about being gifted or talented or more fortunate than others. It's about a choice we all can make. Being a person who has been average and below average for most of my life, the idea that I had the choice to change all that was a message from the book that went straight to my heart and my soul. Overcome Your Resistance. The War of Art by Steven Pressfield is another book for anyone who wants to make the best of their lives. The War of Art is about the self-saboteur in all of us. Steven Pressfield identifies resistance as that force inside each of us that holds us back. I know this character named Resistance well, except in my case, my resistance comes in different characters with different names. In the morning, my resistance goes by the name of Fat Boy. As I awake, look at my clock and say, "Time to go to the gym," immediately Fat Boy says, "Oh no, not this morning. You're not feeling well. Besides, it's chilly outside. Go to the gym tomorrow." Fat Boy is the guy inside me that would rather eat than exercise. My resistance comes disguised in many different characters. I have lots of them. In addition to Fat Boy, another character is Lazy Husband. This character often says things such as, "Why didn't Kim do this or do that?" Another resistance character that runs my life is Financial Slob, who is always saying, "Why check the numbers?" After Financial Slob has his say, then Lazy Husband says, "Kim, will you check these numbers?" As you can tell, Fat Boy, Financial Slob, and Lazy Husband are close friends of mine. We are together every day. Pressfield calls it resistance. I call them my buddies. Steven Pressfield's book is about overcoming your resistance by tapping into your creative power, your spiritual allies, your angels or muses. I would say this book is essential for entrepreneurs. It is not a book for people who simply want to get rich quick. Like Good to Great, The War of Art contains many priceless lessons, yet there is one lesson that pertains directly to this subject of giving one's gift. It comes from a chapter entitled Professionals and Amateurs and says, aspiring artists defeated by resistance share one trait. They all act like amateurs. They have not yet turned pro. To be clear, when I say professional, I don't mean doctors and lawyers, those of the professions. I mean the professional as an ideal, the professional in contrast to the amateur. Consider the differences. The amateur plays for fun. The professional plays for keeps. To the amateur, the game is his avocation. To the pro, it's his vocation. The amateur plays part-time. The professional, full-time. The amateur is a weekend warrior. The professional is there 7 days a week. The word amateur comes from the Latin root meaning to love. The conventional interpretation is that the amateur pursues his calling out of love, while the pro does it for money. Not the way I see it. In my view, the amateur does not love the game enough. If he did, he would not pursue it as a sideline, distinct from his real vocation. The professional loves it so much he dedicates his life to it. He commits full time. That's what I mean when I say turning pro. Resistance hates it when we turn pro. An overnight success. Writing about the success of the Rich Dad series of books, a news journalist said, "This author is an overnight success. Only 3 other books in the history of the New York Times bestseller list have been on the list longer than Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Most authors write for years and write many books and never make the New York Times list." The words overnight success and author always cause me to chuckle. I do not consider myself an author, and I am certainly not an overnight success. I am simply someone who found my mission. I have been working on this mission for years and have partners who share that mission. Being an author is just one of the jobs I perform in order to fulfill that mission. I really wish I did not have to write. Ever since failing English in high school at the age of 15 because I could not write, I have had a deep aversion to writing. For years, I hated writing. It was the hardest thing I had to do. There are many other ways to communicate that are easier for me, and I would rather do, like audio or video recordings or live appearances. In spite of this, Rich Dad, Poor Dad has been a best-selling business book in America for many years. Lance Armstrong has won many Tour de France races, but his biggest battle was conquering cancer at the peak of his career. In comparison, if it's cold outside, I won't go to the gym. Armstrong's level of professionalism and love of his sport are an inspiration to us all, regardless of what our game is. As he said in his book, It's Not About the Bike, I was beginning to see cancer as something that I was given for the good of others. All I knew was that I felt I had a mission to serve others that I'd never had before, and I took it more seriously than anything in the world. It's not about the money. Another question I am asked by journalists is, why do you keep working? If you have all this money, why don't you just go on a permanent vacation? Just as Lance Armstrong states, it's not about the bike, for me, it's not about the money. It's about the mission. In 1974, seeing my poor dad sitting at home watching TV, a broken and broke man, I found my mission. Watching my dad sitting there, I could see the future. Not just for him, but for millions, maybe billions of people worldwide. In the next few years, by 2015, it will become more apparent that throughout the world, there are millions, maybe billions of people just like my dad. These are smart, educated, hardworking people who will need government support for food, shelter, and medicine. This is a worldwide phenomenon affecting every country in the world, Even the richest of countries, such as the United States, England, Japan, Germany, France, and Italy. In 1974, I realized the problem was that too many people, like my dad, were depending upon the government for life support. My rich dad had seen the problem growing and that Social Security and Medicare were going to be massive financial problems for the United States and the world. I could see that the richest country in the world could become a country filled with poor people expecting the government to take care of them. In 1974, when my poor dad recommended, "Go back to school and get your PhD so you can find a job with good benefits," I found my mission. At the time, I did not know that I had found my mission. All I knew was that my dad's advice I used to listen to, now deeply disturbed me. Seeing my dad sitting on the couch watching TV, unemployed, smoking, and collecting his government benefits, I knew there was something terribly flawed in his advice. Times had changed, but his advice had not. I believe seeing my father in 1974 was seeing the future. Why doing what you love is not enough. Very often, I hear people say, "I'm doing what I love." Also, I hear people say, "Do what you love and the money will follow." While this is good advice, there are also some flaws in the advice. The most obvious flaw is the use of the word "I." One's true mission is about whom you love. It is not about you. A mission is about whom you do